I guess I'm too hungry right now. I'm hungry in this -29 right now here in Alberta. Okay. You know what? Let's just cook something. Hi guys, this is Casey Armando. Welcome to my channel, and today we're gonna talk about how do I shoot. So this video I'm gonna give you 15 tips on how do I shoot my videos, and more like techniques or tips on how to shoot videos. So let's get started. Okay, tip number 1, widescreen bars. Okay, the reason why I shoot widescreen bars because when I put the anamorphic for your video, it kind of gives us to draw the viewers to the subject. That's the reason why I always shoot in more a bit wider, but when I crop it, it's gonna bring more subject. Okay, tip number 2, opening the aperture. Apertures. Everybody sometimes shoot a high aperture because they don't have indie filters, especially shooting on hard daylight. This is a possibility that if you shoot on, let's say, f12, the depth of field became more wider, so it gives us the sharpness on the background. So that's why if you try to shoot in 1.8 or 2.8, it gives us the nice and smooth and sharp of the subject and the smooth background. And it also brings attention to the subject, how to focus it. It's gonna be help for you. Tip number 3, steady shooting. How do I shoot steady shooting? Mostly I just use my elbow to put on my hips so that it can support the steadiness. So that's why you got a clip like this. So it's more helpful, but when you try to do some walking, I'll just talk about the rest on the tips. Tip number 4, shoot in slow-mo. I mostly shoot at 60 FPS because if I shoot in 24 FPS and then edit it in slow-mo, there's not a good idea because the frame is not slow-mo enough for the per second. So if I shoot in 60 FPS and then slow it to 24 frames per second, this will be the results on my clip. Moving on, tip number 5, don't blow the highlights. Of course, if you're gonna shoot overexposed, the clip is not useful enough, but it depends on how you shoot and other stuff. But of course, just don't blow the highlights, because even you try to edit and try to recover it, it's still not a good clip, to be honest. Tip number 6, change the shot and lens and angles. There's only 3 types that we can shoot on a clip. It's either want to go with the extreme close-up, the mid shot, and a low angle shot. These 3 shots, it's gonna help you and create a lot of creativeness when you try to make a B-roll or something like that. Because if you focus on one subject, it's gonna be a boring video. I'll try that. It's really bad. I'll be honest with that. Tip number 7, shoot in a flat profile. The reason why I shoot in a flat profile because it gives me more dynamic range on the clip I have, or I can have more control in doing color grading stuff. And mostly in flat profile, it lower the contrast and lower the saturation. Tip number 8, use 3-axis gimbal or glide cam. The reason why we have to use the gimbal, if you want to clip that the subject is walking or running, it's gonna be a big help for if you want a steady shot on it, more like an action clip. So if you can buy it, even you can go with a 3-axis gimbal. It's still useful, to be honest. If you can afford 3-axis gimbal or a glide cam, as long as you invest it for something, it always comes back for your money. So anyway, moving on. Tip number 9, composition. Okay, a lot of people having hard times on what to shoot or what frame should I fill in. Tip for me, you can use the rule of thirds as a guide on the camera so that you can know what subject you want or what the frame will be filled in. Use this line because it's gonna help you a lot. Tip number 10, the correct white balance. Of course, not just because you're gonna base on what you color grade you can pull it out, but no, it's a big help that if you correct your white balance, especially knowing the surroundings of your area, especially let's say in this clip, it's really snowy, so when you think about snow, it's about cold, right? So if I correct the white balance into more on bluish, it gives us the right feeling, because if we're gonna go with a warm or sunny day, it's kind of a bit awkward, right? Always correct the white balance. it's gonna help you, and especially doing color grade, doing the correct colors. Tip number 11, shoot through objects to create depth. It's bigger helpful, especially like focusing on the subject, and then that creates depth, creates composition. Always find an object on that and create it to make a depth on that. Tip number 12, warp stabilizer if necessary. If there are some clips that needs to be stabilized, this is the last option, but it's only necessary if sometimes warp stabilizer destroys the clips as well, so just make it a last resort if there's nothing left. Tip number 30, shoot with soft light. If you're shooting in a daylight or high noon, the lighting is not so good. If you find a shaded wall, or let's say shoot through a window, creates a more softening on the subject. That's why it's more like a dramatically feels, and that's why it's too bright. Or if you do have a softbox to just to diffuse the light for the subject, it might be a good help for that. So don't shoot at hard lighting because, you know, overexpose. Tip number 14, make the shutter speed double the frame rate. Let's say if you're shooting at 24 FPS, make sure that your shutter speed is only at 1:50, because if you shoot more than the shutter speed itself, it creates the not so realistic and the video feels. Say for example, if I move the camera so hard, it creates no motion blur instead. But if I go with 1:50, it creates a motion blur. It's more like realistic versus unrealistic. So it same goes well if you're gonna do a slow motion. Make sure your shutter speed is 1:20. If you're in the 60 FPS, it's gonna be a big helpful. So tip number 15, sound effects. For the clip, especially if you're doing a documentation for something, sound effects is creating more life to the video, because no sound effects on your clips kind of feels like plain. So if you do have sound effects for like editing, on doing hyperlapse and zoom in effects, put in more sound, it brings more life and more feels on it. So hopefully it helps. Thank you guys for watching my video. These are my 15 tips on how do I shoot my videos. And if you guys have some questions, just comment down below and I'll respond them as soon as possible. And if this video helps you, please give it a thumbs up. And if you really enjoyed this video, you can subscribe on this channel. Maybe I'll keep doing more videos like this or something else. So thank you guys. Thanks for all your time and have a great day.